In June of 2021, a hiker named Ethan Riley disappeared while trekking alone through a remote stretch of Saline Valley in Death Valley National Park. No signal. No distress call. Just a single boot print leading into the rocks. And nothing coming back. For 2 years, his name faded into dust until a freelance journalist stumbled upon something the Rangers had missed. Ethan Riley wasn't a thrill seeker. He was a quiet, observant 33-year-old from Sacramento who wrote trail reviews for outdoor blogs and taught middle school geography. He had a habit of walking slowly, stopping often and writing little notes about sand textures, wind shifts, and rock formations. Friends called him the cartographer of nowhere. He liked that. Ethan loved places that didn't make the postcards, the dry valleys, the abandoned mining roads, the dead ends on outdated maps. On June 17, 2021, Ethan checked into the Saline Valley Warm Springs area with a 45-pound pack, 3 liters of water, 2 notebooks, and a borrowed handheld GPS. Temperatures that week hovered around 114 degrees Fahrenheit. He logged his destination in the trail register at Willow Creek. Solo desert route. Off-grid observation of evaporation patterns, 4 days, Riley. He also mailed a letter to his sister the night before. Letter mailed June 16, 2021. If I don't come back, tell them I found something strange out there. Something that hums below the silence. It was poetic but ominous. His sister, Laura Riley, would later tell investigators, he never said things like that. Not in writing. Not unless he was scared. Search and rescue began on day 5. A hiker from Los Angeles reported an abandoned tent flapping in the wind 2 miles from the creek. Inside were Ethan's keys, his maps, and both notebooks. But no food, no gear. No water. And more disturbing, his boots were gone, but his socks were still inside the tent. A pile of fine reddish dust was found near the entrance, but didn't match any nearby formations. A local tracker, Javier Pina, noted something odd. There were no drag marks, no scuffle. Just this emptiness, like he walked into a hole in the world. Interview, SAR leader, Ranger Donna Levesque, 2021. There were no drag marks. No prints leaving the site. It's like he stepped out of his shoes and evaporated. Thermal drones scanned the hills. Helicopters followed every dry wash and canyon shadow. They found 1 boot print heading up toward Last Chance Range, then nothing. Canine units were brought in. 1 dog refused to leave a specific patch of rock. Ground-penetrating radar was briefly deployed, but dismissed when the signal became erratic. 1 volunteer, a geology grad student, claimed her magnetometer stopped working entirely in one direction, near an uncharted slope. By July, the case went cold. Ethan Riley became another name in the sand. His family held a private memorial in early August. They left one of his notebooks at the summit of Cerro Gordo Peak, but his sister never stopped asking questions. 2 years later, in August 2023, Independent journalist Leah Rowe was researching unsolved disappearances in national parks. Her podcast, Wilderness Echo, had just released a mini-series on disappearances near Yosemite. A fan emailed her with a single sentence. You should look into the guy who vanished with no feet, Saline Valley. They buried the story. She almost ignored it. But something about the phrase vanished with no feet stuck with her. Leah drove in with a dusty Suburban, a sat phone, a drone, and 2 weeks of supplies. She interviewed rangers, locals, climbers. Nobody had much to offer. Many brushed her off. Then, by pure chance, she met Mark Enrita, a retired field tech, who had helped install seismic sensors in the area during the 90s. He pointed her toward something no one had searched, a geologic anomaly north of Hunter Mountain. Called the Memory Field. It wasn't on the tourist maps. A stretch of salt flats with magnetic interference that warped compasses and messed with drones. Enright said instruments used to fail in that zone, and one technician reported headaches and hallucinations after a week there. We joked about it in the lab, Mark said. Called it the Bermuda Patch. On day 5 of her trip, Leah camped near the memory field. She used the drone to create a 3D map of the area, but found something strange. Sections of her footage disappeared mid-recording. That night, while scanning the area with a thermal scope, she caught a faint signal, a heat signature behind a rock outcropping. She approached at dawn. What she found would ignite the case again. A dry cave, 4 feet high and 12 feet deep. At the back, a pile of stones. Underneath, scraps of cloth. A shattered solar battery. And bones. Human. One of them was embedded with a titanium plate later, matched to Ethan Riley's medical history. Also buried was a waterlogged voice recorder. It had sand packed in the speaker, but the data chip was intact. Excerpt: Ethan Riley's final recording. Day 3. I followed the dust plume I saw yesterday. I think it was a vehicle, maybe military. Saw lights behind the ridge last night. My GPS won't lock. I'm circling the same rocks. I left my shoes by the tent so they'd come for them. If you find this, I wasn't lost. Something was tracking me. It didn't want me to leave. Forensic analysis dated the bones to mid-2021. No trauma, no scavenger marks, just ... Heat, starvation, and what officials called psychological disorientation. But there were 2 details no one could explain. Ethan's voice recorder had a timestamp. 7 days after the search had already ended. On one of his notebooks, a single phrase was written over and over, asterisk, I wasn't supposed to map it. A third detail less. None was kept out of the official report. According to Leah, the cave walls were scratched with symmetrical patterns. Perfect circles, radiating lines. Geometric symbols Ethan had never drawn in any other notebook. Leah published her findings in Outside magazine. Within weeks, Ethan's story went viral. The memory field was quietly fenced off by the Department of the Interior. Rangers were told to redirect hikers. Leah tried to go back 1 month later, but the access road had been bulldozed. The trailhead sign was gone. She received an anonymous email. Asterisk, you found one site. There are others. Not all maps are meant to be read. Later, her producer received a package. No return address. Inside was a Polaroid photo of what looked like a desert marker stone, balanced perfectly on an empty salt flat. On the back, someone had written, asterisk, Riley wasn't the first. A week later, Leah's drone was confiscated at a ranger checkpoint. They cited unauthorized airspace. She was told, off the record, that some caves were never supposed to open again. To this day, no one knows what Ethan saw, or why his boots were left behind like breadcrumbs. But as Leah said in her final podcast episode, on the case, asterisk, some places aren't forgotten because they're lost. They're lost because they weren't meant to be found. And neither do we. Ending line, voiceover. In the heart of America's hottest desert, a man disappeared without a trace. 2 years later, a woman followed his silence and heard the echo that changed everything.